What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the first part of a story where Izuku became the Dark Slayer Vergil Successor. Izuku Midoriya lived in a society where 80% of the population developed supernatural ability called quirks, which appears in the form of one joint in the pinky toe. Unfortunately, Izuku had the normal 2 joints, which indicated that he was among the 20% minority who were born with no quirk whatsoever, making him quirkless, meaning he had no supernatural power to his own name, but that was far from the truth. Living as a quirkless teenager had affected his confidence, especially when his childhood friend turned bully Katsuki Bakugo had turned on him, tormenting him throughout kindergarten up to middle school, where at one point Inko decided that enough is enough and had took Izuku to a school with a strict quirk policy in hopes that her son would not be discriminated, and while he was occasionally mocked for being quirkless, but he wasn't bullied as much and he made quite a few friends. Izuku managed to make friends with people like Harem, Shizuku Yagashi and Kaori Shirasaki, who were nice to him unlike most other students. At one point, Izuku and the rest of his classmates found themselves summoned to another world when a magic circle engulfed the entirety of the classroom, transporting them to the world of Tortus. What kind of job class will Izuku get? What will happen if Izuku and Harem were betrayed by someone and thrown deep inside the labyrinth? What will happen when Izuku's Sparda bloodline awaken? How will that change Izuku? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations and support the amazing author Armored Lord 1115 for writing this story. Now, let's get into part 1. Before we start, here some clarification about Izuku's abilities, power scale and harem. Of course it's a harem story. Anyway, let's get going. Name: Izuku Sparda. Classification: half demon, half human hybrid, Dark Slayer. Alias: Eku, Izuku-kun, Izu-kun, Lucky Gambler, Prodigy, Genius, God's Apostle, Boss, Lover Smashers, Lady Killer, Irregular, Demon Lord, God Slayer, Demon Lord, Harem Bastard Dark Slayer, Descendant of Sparda, King of Abyss, Demon, Samurai Boy, the Fallen King of Lighting. Threat level: 1. Wolf plus. Izuku is a small building level threat and was shown to be one of the strongest of their group, comparable to the likes of Kakuya Managawa, who has the job of a hero, as well as Shizuku Yagashi, who has the job of Swordmaster. Izuku job Dark Slayer allows him to use a unique type of II sword style that focused on speed and quick draw, along with giving him the ability of teleportation. Unfortunately, Izuku can't use the style to its fullest potential due to being given a knight sword. Small building level. 2. Dragon. Izuku is island level threat and was shown to be far stronger than Harem, who is already strong enough to fight and defeat an Apostles of God. His own Sparda bloodline awakening back at the Abyss had given Izuku an immense mana, superhuman strength, speed, agility, durability, stamina and accelerated healing. Having also received Yamato made him able to use his Dark Slayer style to its fullest potential. Island level. 3. Mao. Izuku is considered to be large country level to small continent level. He is able to fight Apostles of God with extreme ease, having killed one with his back turned against one of them, which further highlights that Izuku doesn't view them as a threat. Large country level, small continent level. 4. God plus. Izuku is considered to be large planet level and is noted to be far stronger than Ehud himself, to the point that the false god feared him and avoided him at all cost, and had even later attempted to take over Yu through possession in hopes that Izuku's love for Yu would prevent him from bringing harm to her body, but that failed as Yu is immune to possession after having sucked on Izuku blood for years. Large planet level. Age: Part 1, 15 to 16. Gender: male. Personality: pre-fall. Izuku is a very laid-back person but was humble, with a kind and gentle yet powerful heart. Due to being quirkless, Izuku had made sure to stay away from trouble and avoided socializing with others, which made him introverted, as having been announced as quirkless at the age of 4 had changed his life and for the worse. Izuku is noted to be strong-willed, as despite his mother's inability to offer him the support he had wanted to hear from her, along with his childhood friend Katsuki Bakugo becoming his bully, he had never once given up on his dreams of becoming a hero like All Might. While many had often called him delusional for his unrealistic dream of becoming a hero without a quirk, Izuku is far from being delusional. Izuku hopes to become a hero, whether that it be support type, by using his intelligence to create weapon to help the heroes, or maybe create something to help fight against quirk users. Izuku also is intelligent and was shown capable of analyzing a person's quirk just being seeing it once, and was shown to also be interested in the field of tactical hero like Nezu and Night Eye, who plan to ensure the success for the heroes. After his mother found out about the situation at Aldera, she had moved him to another school with strict quirk policy to ensure his safety. Due to having seen everything at Aldera, Izuku was not much fazed from the verbal abuse he had received from some of his classmates, as he had heard worse and was beaten at Aldera, but the quirk policy at his new school prevented the other students from trying to physically harm him. Izuku is best friends with Hajime Nagumo, who happened to be quirkless like him, which made their bond even stronger. Additionally, Izuku shares some history with one of the two school idols, Shizuku Yugashi, as he had trained in her family dojo after Shizuku had recommended it to him in her attempt to support his dreams of becoming a hero, something he greatly appreciated from her. Izuku is considered to be very heroic and won't shy away from trying to help others, albeit at the expense of his own health, something that he often got reprimanded for by others like Shizuku, who found it to be very reckless. Post-fall. During their first practice at the Orcus Labyrinth, both Izuku and Hajime were betrayed by Kauki and Hiyama when two stray fireballs were aimed at them during their escape from the monster that is the behemoth. Even when Izuku had managed to clutch onto the floor, Kauki, pretending to pull him up, had instead pushed him and Hajime deep in the abyss without any remorse while insulting them. Kauki and Hiyama betrayal had drove Izuku to his mental limit and snapped as a result. This led to Izuku's personality taking a twisted turn that was unexpected for someone who was once kind-hearted person who cared about the well-being of others. While he retained his calm nature, as despite everything, Izuku didn't let his emotion get the best of him when it comes to assessing and analyzing situation, but Izuku had abandoned many of his former generous and kind nature. Izuku was shown to be sardonic in nature. Unlike before, Izuku has shown to care very little for the well-being of others, as he believed that he has no reason to protect others. He doesn't know about stating openly that he was not above resorting to committing mass genocide if he felt that his safe return to Japan was being threatened, as he has no aspiration of saving the world, rather he wanted to return home to his single mother. His lack of care of the races in Tortus had further cemented when he learned about how the liberators had been defeated when they were labeled as heretics, and as such humanity and everyone turned against them, but due to their oaths, they couldn't retaliate, and later on the dragonmen, who had centuries of blood, sweat and tears, go down the drain when they were labeled as heretic creatures. Izuku's faith in heroes had also suffered a blow, as he had realized that heroes in his old world may not be so different. It made Izuku realize that not all heroes are good and righteous people who perform good deeds out of the kindness of their hearts, nor does all villains are evil people who seek to harm others. People are affected by their surroundings, such as him, who was forced to adapt in order to survive in a society that didn't value him. Despite appearing to care very little for other people, Izuku still noted that he still had some of his softer side, heroic side, as was shown when he had seen Yu sealed away and was ready to free her at this moment without any form of hesitation, unlike Hajime, who was suspicious and was against freeing her due to how highly dangerous she is to be locked down there in the most dangerous labyrinth. Due to being betrayed, Izuku considers himself to be a very good judge of character. With the eyes often being depicted as the window of the soul, he is able to determine a person's intention and can even detect lies being made. That's why Izuku was willing to free Yu from her seal, due to seeing her eyes, which was the look of someone who had just gotten betrayed, which made him sympathize with her without realizing it, and as such had freed her even when Hajime tried to stop him. Despite appearing to be antisocial, which is the result of his upbringings, Izuku was shown that he only ever cares about those that are part of his own inner circle, such as Hajime, who was his best friend, Yu, who later became his first wife, and Shizuku, who became his second wife, and the rest who had joined later on, such as Shei Halia, Tio Claris, Kaori Shirasaki, etc. Izuku also cares to some degree to the people who had showed him extreme kindness, such as Meld Loggins. Despite looking like he had no morals due to the many things he committed, Izuku draws the line on harming children. The latter was shown in regards to Mayu when he slaughtered those that were involved in kidnapping her. Izuku believed that children shouldn't be involved in adults' fights and was at first against bringing Mayu with them due to the danger that accompanies them, but had relented when he had realized the incompetence of the guards whom they entrusted her safety to. He had shown to have a soft side towards Kid, with Mayu being his little niece whom he cherished. Izuku and Hajime are both considered by others as more of an anti-hero, as they don't follow the conventional method of a hero. Izuku has shown to have good intention to some degree, but his methods are often questioned, as just like Hajime, he was willing to kill anyone, whether they be human, monster or demon, if they were to get in the way of his and his loved ones. Izuku strongly believes that might controls everything, and without strength you cannot protect anything, let alone yourself. But unlike Vergil, who devoted his entire life obsessively seeking power while pushing others away, Izuku has no problem allowing people in his life to help him, albeit he only shown to care more for those who are part of his circle of friends, family. Izuku won't hesitate to use others like his own old classmates to further his goals. willing to use many of them as meat shields, and in order to keep an eye on them so when they shown signs of betrayal, he would kill them on the spot so they wouldn't hinder him in the future. Izuku has shown to have a habit of mouthing off those he really dislikes or taunt others in order to rile them up and get them to make mistakes they usually wouldn't make. He had shown to be sadistic and enjoy tormenting others, with his favorite target of torment being Hiyama, as well as Kaki, as he can at any time kill them or reveal their crimes which put them on edge. Given that Izuku is half demon, he naturally can be described a lustful person and wouldn't reject the advances of Yu, which was shown when he had bedded her that same night. Still, Izuku have some form of standards and will only have sex with those he share close intimate relationship with, such as Yu, and later on Shizuku and Lilyana themselves. Appearance. Pre-fall. Due to his intense training, Izuku Midoriya is considered to be quite tall for his age, standing at a height of 183 centimeters, and is bound to grow taller as he progressed in age. He is considered to be quite muscular for his age, which makes him even more handsome as he looks more mature for his age. He has a short mess of fluffy dark green hair which sticks up at odd angles around his head, casting noticeably dark shadows onto itself. His eyes look extremely sharp given his training, with his eyes as having the same green color as his hair. He has a set of 4 symmetrical freckles in diamond formations, one on each cheek. Post-fall. After his Sparda bloodline kicked after being betrayed, Izuku had transformed, having been shown to have fair, yet pale skin. His hair had become white and his eyes became blue. Father. Hiyashi Midoriya. States. Unknown. Mother. Inko Midoriya. States. Alive. Ancestor. Sparda. States. Deceased. Eve Sparda. States. Deceased. Vergil Sparda. States. Deceased. Dante Sparda. States. Deceased. Nero Sparda. States. Deceased. Hours. Superhuman strength. Due to his demonic heritage, Izuku has inhuman amounts of physical strength. So much so that he incorporates strikes with Yamato's sheath in combat and can throw it with enough force to pierce one of Ehit's powerful apostles such as Noint. Superhuman speed. When wielding Yamato, combined with his prodigious swordsmanship, Izuku can cut and slash at speeds faster than the eye can see. He is quick enough to draw multiple slashes in one draw to stop raindrops from hitting the ground in a heavy downpour, and swings Yamato fast enough that he can catch bullets and even launch them. Superhuman agility. Izuku can perform jumps much higher than a normal human and perform a variety of flips and spins while doing so. Superhuman durability. Izuku is capable of taking brute force attacks without showing signs of damage. Izuku's durability has been shown to allow him to simply shrug off wounds that would either disable or outright kill a normal person, such as being impaled through the chest with his own sword. His teeth are also strong enough to catch bullets and flying projectiles. Superhuman stamina. Despite taking a large amount of damage and large amounts of physical strain, Izuku is shown to be able to continue fighting and only needs a few moments of rest to move about again without strain. Izuku's stamina is great enough to the point he was able to fight continuously for weeks. Accelerated healing. Due to his demonic heritage, Izuku can heal instantly as soon as whatever is injuring him has been removed from his body. It is strong enough that he came out unscathed from a strike from Rebellion that would have otherwise bisected him. This healing factor is extremely strong. Even when Izuku is physically exhausted, his healing powers work at almost full strength. Demonic power manipulation. Izuku is able to imbue his demonic power into objects to augment them. He mostly uses his demonic power to create weapons that can be used for various purposes. Izuku is also able to create a doppelganger of himself to aid him in the battle against his opponent. Telekinesis. Izuku demonstrates telekinetic abilities, stopping carriages in mid-air before shooting it with ebony and ivory. He also appeared to show telekinetic abilities shown when he splayed his hand and Yamato smashed through the ceiling window before landing in his hand, although this could also be related to Izuku's metaphysical connection to the sword. Teleportation. Izuku has advanced teleportation abilities that he uses to strategically reposition himself around the battlefield. He is noted to be more skilled with teleportation than Dante, as he uses it far more frequently and sometimes with the aid of Yamato. Izuku can teleport in a puff of blue flame. He also once teleported in a burst of lightning. Force field generation. Izuku can project a purple spherical shield made of demonic energy around his body whilst preparing his devil trigger. Although it only seems to last for a few seconds, the shield is strong enough to protect him from every manner of attack. The shield can also generate a repulsion field that prevents enemies from getting close. Izuku can control this repulsion field, disabling it when conjuring a set of spiral swords, which will harm nearby enemies. Devil trigger. Izuku can unleash his demonic side to significantly enhance all of his powers and abilities. When he jumps during this state, wings sprout out, however he cannot glide or fly with them. Sin Devil Trigger. Izuku obtains Sin Devil Trigger. It allows him to fly with new wings while retaining his regeneration ability and further enhancing his power. Doppelganger. Izuku can create a phantom doppelganger of himself. Abilities. Skilled hand-to-hand combatant. Izuku has been shown to be highly proficient at hand-to-hand combat, using various martial arts techniques, including Bruce Lee's one-inch punch. He is also noted by Dante that Izuku is capable of defeating lesser demons completely unarmed with little difficulty. Weapon proficiency. Izuku is proficient with a variety of weapons, including swords, scythes, gauntlets, and even unorthodox supernatural weapons. He displays an impressive ability to judge the capabilities of weapons almost as soon as he picks them up. Marksmanship. Although he is aided by his superhuman precision in gunfights, Izuku has an innate mastery of any firearm he comes in contact with. He is capable of shooting ebony and ivory in 2 different directions at once, and can aim with such accuracy that his bullets stack on the hilt of Yamato. Swordsmanship. Izuku is a dangerous master swordsman wielding the Yamato with unrivaled precision and versatility. His technique is based on Iaijutsu, a style of samurai swordsmanship which involves quick, precise draws from the sheath, striking the opponent, and removing blood from the sword before resheathing. His Iaijutsu is made more powerful by incorporating his own demonic powers, having learned a personalized style called the Dark Slayer from Vergil. When Yamato is still unsheathed, Izuku also often uses the scabbard itself as a weapon, using it for blunt strikes or to block an enemy's attack. Due to this style, Izuku commonly wields Yamato with one hand, holding the scabbard with the other. However, when necessary he sometimes puts the scabbard away and uses both hands with Yamato. In Devil Trigger, the scabbard becomes a part of his left hand and can adjust the position at will, allowing him to freely wield the blade with both hands while still performing his Iaijutsu techniques. After obtaining Force Edge, Izuku was immediately able to fight in a style almost identical to Dante's. On lesser foes, the speed, precision, and discipline bestowed to him allows him to outpace and utterly them cut down, as if akin to an art form, with great concentration in only splits of a second and issuing a number of blows at his discretion. One of Izuku's signature traits is to time his victim's demise and sheathe in sync with the damage done, resulting in a display of destruction that slays the opposition before they could even realize it. Mirage's Blade. Spectral swords created by Izuku's demonic power. He usually fires one at a time, but by expending Devil Trigger, he can summon multiple swords that he can arrange in various formations, such as a shield that rotates around him or to float behind him until he decides to launch them all rapid fire. Summoned swords. Spectral swords created by Izuku's demonic power and used as projectiles or to orbit around himself as a shield. He is also able to teleport them around an opponent in various formations where they typically rotate around the target before attacking. Hacker. Izuku can hack into any computer and security system, as shown when he hacked into government complex and advanced networks. Arsenal. Yamato. A keepsake katana given to him by Vergil. It is forged by darkness and capable of cutting through dimensions. It serves as the source of his powers. Mirage Edge. An illusionary replacement for Force Edge based on his Mirage blades. Ebony and Ivory. Izuku's twin handguns, custom built for rapid fire, once belonged to Dante before it was given to him. Ancient Magic. 1. Creation Magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, which grants control over any object, structure, be it physical or magical, or mineral, allowing the user to shape or transform them in any way they wish. It is the only form of magic which allows the creation of an artifact. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with any inorganic material. 2. Gravity Magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, it gives the user control over gravity. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with the energy of star, and just not gravity. Theoretically, it could also interfere with things like earth vein or terrestrial heat, bedrock or magma, and it isn't impossible to use this magic to purposefully generate earthquake or volcano eruption. 3. Spatial Magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, it allows the user to manipulate the space around themselves, allowing them to either bend or expand the space near them, or move themselves to another space or location. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with a boundary. Meaning it can allow the user to manipulate anything, like the elimination of race-creature gap, or formulating new boundary to create a spirit world. It's possible to achieve those kinds of things. 4. Restoration Magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, which allows the user to restore the state of anything to either its previous or original condition. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with the time, meaning it has the ability to manipulate the time of anything, any place or anyone to a point the user desires to. 5. Spirit magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, which allows the user to manipulate the soul of a living being directly. It's possible to revive a living being back from the dead, time restriction applicable, or transfer the soul of a living being from one body to another, or even into a non-physical body as well, practically granting any living being immortality. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with the negative material possessed by a living thing. To be more specific, this magic could also interfere with things like energy inside the body that was mana, heat, electricity, then thought, consciousness, memory. Those who have mastery over this magic can even create an artificial consciousness and allow it to inhabit anybody they wish. 6. Evolution magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, which allows the user to enhance or evolve all other forms of power, be it strong or weak. It can work on even other ancient magic as well, boosting their power and scope. The true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with the information about existing things. This magic enhances or evolves an ability or power by a stage of 1, by interfering with the target's information, and the increased at 1 by 1 stage. 7. Metamorphosis magic. One of the ancient magic originating from the Age of God, which allows a user to remake the form of a normal being and reform them into a different form. Normally, it's used to remake a normal organism and turn it into a monster, or even manipulate the magic stone of a monster and remake them. But the true power of this magic is the ability to interfere with any organic material. Meaning not only animals, but it's also possible to remake plants or intelligent beings and reform their structure as needed. Even byproducts of organic material, like paper or food, can also be manipulated by this magic. The magic stone which gets created during the process is just a byproduct of the process. 8. Concept magic. It is a form of ancient magic art, which is a combination of many other ancient magics. The main ability of concept magic is that allows one to interfere with the laws of the world and impress concepts upon it. By raising up a powerful wish or desire with spirit magic and evolution magic, it can be raised to a level of a concept before being forcefully materialized with magical power. However, since the user's desire out of the time of use is used as the base of the magic to raise up and create the concept, the spell may not remain stable in subsequent uses, thus a single spell can only be used once under most circumstances. However, if the desire is still needed, it can be used more than once. It should be noted however that concept magic requires the user to concentrate on raising up their wish in order to materialize the concept, as such it wouldn't be useful in a battle where the user is under attack. Also, some concepts are impossible to materialize by the user on their own. Love interest. 1. Yu. First wife. Yu is considered the legal first wife and authority that Yu enjoys exerting on others, especially later on, after Shizuku had joined the small harem, after being permitted to by Yu herself. Yu is madly in love with Izuku after he willingly freed her without even questioning her as to why she was down there, unlike Harem who was highly suspicious of her, not that she blamed him for it given their circumstances. It was Izuku's willingness to free Yu from her century of imprisonment that Yu had fallen in love with him, becoming attached to him very quickly. It didn't help that she had zinged the moment she made eye contact with Izuku, which meant that she had found her soulmate. When learning that the one who saved her was a descendant of the legendary Dark Knight, Sparda had resulted in Yu's obsession over Izuku to increase, as she had a fantasy of being saved by a Sparda knight, a dream she thought wouldn't happen. Having sucked on Izuku's blood in order to recover had an effect that none of them could have predicted, as she gained a mature form in which she can switch between her teenage form to her older form, something she had abused to the fullest whenever she sexually assaulted Izuku. Yu gaining a mature form from having sucked on Izuku blood had also granted her a boost in all of her stats. Yu has no issue with sharing Izuku, as she had allowed Shizuku to join the small harem, as she had taken a liking to the female swordsman. Yu naturally isn't seen without Izuku by her side, which makes her glued to his side, which is why whenever they're separated, whether that it be because of the labyrinth doing so, or other factors that are unknown, would naturally result in Yu to be in a constant bad mood, in which she would strike down anyone willing to even use others including allies, as a stepping stone, aside from a select few like Harem, Shay, Kaori, Tio, Shizuku, in order to once more reunite with Izuku. Yu is considered to be an attention seeker, and as such has been shown to be very happy when Izuku had exclaimed that aside from her, Shizuku and later on Lilyana, there will be no women that are to be permitted to join the harem, mainly due to Izuku hating the idea of having multiple of women to take care of. This resulted in Izuku's attention to be focused on both Yu, Shizuku, Lilyana, which is something Yu enjoyed greatly, especially Shizuku herself, although the latter didn't really want to admit it. Yu was shown to take every opportunity offered to her to have sex with Izuku, regardless of the place and time. This was shown when Yu had sex with Izuku on the roof of Bryce, making Harem angry when he found out. Another instance of both couple lust for each other was when they were riding on Izuku's motorcycle, in which Yu sat on his dick throughout the ride, and nobody had found out. Their lust doesn't seem to diminish even after Izuku returned back home with her, as the two by then had too much free time in their hand. Yu was called irresponsible many times along with Izuku, as the two have no self-control, and leaving them alone invite trouble due to the two sex life. Yu was shown to have a diary that contained all of her obsessive thoughts on Izuku, which had disturbed many who had come to read her diary. She naturally wants to monopolize all of his attention solely on her alone, to the point that she would make many excuses to have Izuku for herself and spend alone time without any disturbance. 2. Shizuku Yugashi. Second wife. Shizuku Yugashi is the second wife of Izuku after Yu had permitted her to join the harem. She has been shown to have developed a crush over Izuku ever since he came to their middle school, where she had gotten to know him better. Izuku is a member of the Yugashi dojo after Shizuku, in an attempt to support his dream of being a hero and to be close to him, had offered him to join her family dojo, as he had trained rigorously, making her family take a great liking to him even more than Kaguya Managawa, whom they had found annoying and extremely toxic. Due to her inability to express her true nature, Shizuku was naturally very shy about confessing her feelings to Izuku, which resulted in her to be very heartbroken when she learned about Izuku's relationship with the former queen of vampires Yu. Nonetheless, Shizuku was determined to do whatever it takes to prove herself worthy of being with Izuku, even it meant she had to share him with Yu. Luckily for her, Yu had taken extreme liking to her and had permitted Shizuku to join the harem as the second wife. Shizuku would then join Hajime Izuku party in order to gain ancient magic, in which she had gotten close to Izuku even more throughout their journey, albeit they haven't done the deed, something Yu often took pleasure in holding it over her head, much to her own embarrassment. Nonetheless, Shizuku greatly respects Yu, which stems from the fact that Yu had supported a relationship with Izuku. She doesn't much care about trying to outdo Yu, even when the latter always enjoyed holding the fact that she took Izuku's virginity over her head. Shizuku had found happiness being with Izuku, as this allowed her to finally be able to express herself and become a girl. Despite often acting like she wasn't interested in having sex with Izuku, but she was very much interested and was shown to often sneak over to watch Izuku and Yu go at it, which led for Yu to label her as a closet pervert and Suzu labeled her Shizuki, something which she was clearly embarrassed about when she realized that it was true, and that made Shizuku hardcore fans, soul sisters, too. Cry from having her being corrupted. Shizuku has shown to have developed an antagonistic feelings towards Kaguya Managawa, the class hero. This stems from the fact that she, along with Kaori, had seen Kaguya's betrayal towards both Izuku and Hajime back at the labyrinth when Kaguya had assisted in their fall and pretended that it was an accident. Due to her inability to do anything, given that Kaguya is seen as humanity's hero for his job and as such is more valued than the rest of the class, made her extremely livid at others and at herself for her powerlessness. Her frustration led her to train to the point of exhaustion in hopes that one day she would get revenge and punish Kaguya with her own hands. After Izuku and Hajime were revealed to have survived, made her rather happy, but that didn't diminish her hatred towards Kaguya, as she had seen the many reckless and selfish stunts that almost led to the death of her and their other classmates. Shizuku's hatred seemed to be strong enough to the point that she had voiced her desire to kill Kaguya herself on several occasions. 3. Liliana SB Hyliai. Third wife. Liliana is the princess of the Hyliai kingdom and the third wife of Izuku Sparda. Both her and Izuku relationship go way back when they first met, when she checked up on him and the others, especially him the most, out of worry due to his unnatural physical changes and in hopes to be of help to him and the others. She admired Izuku's willingness to help others and, much to her embarrassment, had often found herself imagining him as her knight who'd save her, but given her duties as the princess and the obvious interest of Shizuku in him, made Liliana stay back and watch him from afar, suppressing her true feelings without truly realizing it. She was heartbroken when she learned of Izuku's demise and had later learned that Izuku and Hajime were betrayed by both Kaguya and Hiyama, making her very shocked that the hero would do something so dishonorable and underhanded, and her opinion of him had greatly decreased as she hid her displeasure of him behind a poker face. She was later filled with joy when she learned that Izuku and Hajime both survived, and when they reunited, she was happy when she realized that he recognized her as opposed to Hajime, who struggled to remember her. She harbored both respect and jealousy towards Yu for having managed to get in a relationship with Izuku. Despite that, with how harem is not uncommon in their world, Liliana had often dreamt of having relationship with Izuku beyond being acquaintances, and was surprised when Yu had expressed that she had no issue with sharing him, making Liliana determined to find a way to be with Izuku, but that later changed with her father's death. She had forced herself to be part of an engagement to the son of the Emperor of Holshire, and while deep inside, she hoped to be saved only for wish to be granted and Izuku to appear and save her, before taking her away from himself, after later beheading her fiancé during what was supposed to be her own wedding. Liliana fell in love with Izuku, and those feelings were cemented when she had learned that he was also a descendant of Sparda. In hopes of being able to stand by his side even if a little bit, she had acquired the ancient magic spirit magic, which once belonged to her ancestor Lost Barnes. She loves to be spoiled by him and gets flattered and extremely happy whenever Izuku would object to her and Shizuku being called his concubine, as he likes to refer to them as his wives. She also enjoys whenever he worries over her due to her workaholic nature, and often does it to give Izuku a reason to kidnap her for a date. Given that she hanged around you and some of the other girls, Liliana was also corrupted and would often be found flirting with Izuku every chance she got. She would often invite him to the bathhouse under the pretext of relaxing the muscles, but she was secretly a pervert who enjoys watching his naked body. Poor Yuka Sanab. Fourth wife. Yuka Sanab has a history with Izuku that dates way back when he first entered middle school, and while they never really talked with each other, she was among those who didn't have any issues with his quirkless status, and the two of them had enough amicable relation to exchange greeting with each other, and she even invited him to come to her family restaurant. Her feelings towards Izuku had changed when he had saved her from soldiers who almost killed her when it ambushed her, as Izuku had continued to protect her, even when she didn't ask for it, which made her fall in love with him without realizing it. When Izuku and Harem fell in the abyss and were presumed dead, Yuka was overcome with guilt and shame for her weakness. Yuka had went through withdrawal due to trauma for almost having died in the labyrinth and for having failed Izuku, especially being unable to thank him properly for saving her, as she had wanted to repay him, but with him dead, she had felt like she couldn't make it up to him, but was able to eventually bounce back. In hopes of repaying Izuku's kindness, Yuka was the first to bounce back and decided to act as their teacher bodyguard throughout her journey around the kingdom farms. She also had taken to encouraging and leading the other students whose spirit was broken to also follow her own example, which led to her and the other students to be Aiko's bodyguard. When she learned about Izuku's survival, she was extremely happy and relieved to the point that she didn't mind his new change of attitude. Unlike her other classmates who were intimidated by Harem and Izuku, Yuka was not the least bit intimidated and even went to Izuku in order to thank him and hopefully invite him to eat in her family restaurant for free as a show of gratitude. With Izuku's survival, Yuka felt like she had regained her spirit and started to train her quirk in hopes to make it strong enough to be of help to others. Most of all, she had wanted to be of help towards Izuku despite the fact that she was aware that he was surrounded by very strong people who are leagues above her. With all the clarification out, let's get into the first chapter, shall we? Chapter 1. Summoning. Monday. Arguably the most depressing day in a week. Izuku wasn't exactly a superstitious person, so he really didn't much believe in that nonsense, unlike his best friend Harem Nagumo, who complained a lot on those days. Harem had spent the entire night gaming until sunrise. It was no surprise to Izuku that Harem didn't have the energy to start the day, especially with a lack of sleep, which is a necessity for the human body to develop and improve brain performance, mood and health. Ugh. I hate school. Harem said in a tired tone as he let out a small yawn, which made Izuku frown a bit at his friend's complaints. Harem was a black-haired young man, which is a common hair color in Japan. Additionally, he possesses brown eyes. Despite Harem not training nor being part of any sports program around the school, Harem was considered to be quite slim. Overall, Harem was an average student both in terms of academics as well as in terms of looks. Hobbies first, life later was Harem's motto and reason for his lack of motivation when it came to his academics. Harem's repetitive routine was going to school when the class almost started, sleeping the entire lesson, and waking up when it's break time or when school was over. It was a habit that he doubted Harem would break anytime soon, if even never. It's not like he was outright failing, it was just that he was average. Harem's laziness stems from the fact that his future is already set. His father is a game developer and his mother is a shoujo mangaka. Harem is knowledgeable in both fields and has skills in both to live a comfortable life. He was currently aiming to work at his own father's video game company. If anything, he was technically working since he sometimes helped his father and mother with their work. If you had slept 8 hours a day like I've told you to, you wouldn't be in this situation, said Izuku while Harem rolled his eyes since this was how their day started. Yes, I know. You've told me this so many times. Harem said, clearly annoyed, but he was glad to have someone who worries about his health, something Izuku knew about. Harem and Izuku didn't have many friends at their middle school, so both of them only had each other, especially considering they were both quirkless, so not many people wanted to associate with them. Their daily banter served to make life at school bearable. Thankfully, the staff at their middle school weren't quirkist like Izuku's former middle school Aldera Junior High. They were bullied of course here, but it was only verbal bullying which was either stopped by another student like Shizuku or their own social studies teacher. You're one depressing guy, you know that, Harem. Still, I wouldn't change you for anything. said Izuku as he patted his friend's back while Hajime smiled. "I could say the same thing to you. If you never make it to UA, my father's company is wide open," Hajime said with a smile, obviously meaning well. While Hajime at one point wanted to be a hero just like all other kids when he was growing up, he quickly learned that this world was unfair and he had just accepted it as such. Izuku's dreams were ridiculous to him since there wasn't a quirkless hero in the history of their hero society. Hajime was very much aware that a few years ago, UA had changed their policy to allow quirkless students to join their hero school, but it will be very difficult. Still, as a good friend, Hajime wasn't going to be a dick and will support his friend's dreams. If he makes it to UA, Izuku might become the first quirkless hero, and he'd probably use this to brag that his quirkless buddy made it big in the hero industry. "Thanks. I will take your offer into consideration," said Izuku, chuckling a little bit. It felt very refreshing to have someone to relate to. "I'm not a religious person, but God help me," said Hajime as he looked at his homeroom class door, knowing what will happen once he and Izuku make their way inside. Sliding the door open, Hajime found himself facing one of the two goddesses of their middle school. Kaori Shirasaki is an extremely beautiful young woman to the point that she is considered a goddess in her school alongside her best friend Shizuku Yagashi. Kaori possesses waist-length black hair that is tied back in a half ponytail by a dark-colored bow with big bangs hanging on the right side, while there are small bangs hanging on the left side and brown eyes. "Ah. Nagumo-kun. Midoriya-kun. Good morning," said Kaori with her body leaning forward to greet her two classmates, but it was obvious to many that Kaori's interest is on Hajime rather than Izuku. "Sheesh, you're almost late again. Go earlier next time, okay?" said Kaori with a smile as she knew that Hajime won't listen, but she just simply wanted to talk to him. "Good morning, Shirasaki-san," said Izuku calmly as he then decided to just remove himself from her line of sight and leave Hajime with her. "Aha, yeah. Morning, Shirasaki-san," Hajime greeted back as inside he was panicking. Despite looking like he had no interest in the opposite sex due to always putting his hobbies first, Hajime did have a crush on the school idol. Izuku took his seat ignoring the glares that were directed at both him and his friend Hajime. It was obvious that they were jealous that Shirasaki greeted them instead of them. Izuku sent pitying looks towards Hajime. One of the reasons why Hajime hated school was because of the unwanted attention he had garnered. For Hajime, he had wanted to just fade in the background, but having Kaori take attention to him for some weird reason gave him unwanted animosity from the students. Izuku doubted Kaori had any Kaori had rejected so many of the boys throughout the years in their middle school, even free-ensigning them without even knowing it. He had seen many guys running away with tears in their eyes when Kaori rejected them. It wasn't a surprise that the other boys around their school were extremely hostile towards Hajime after suddenly the school idol had taken an interest in him. It was the reason why Hajime was harassed quite a lot, since many boys tried to prove to Kaori that Hajime was no good. The girls who also idolized Kaori didn't like Hajime as well because not only was he quirkless, but he was also a no-good otaku who doesn't take his own studies seriously, and so they believed that Hajime was dragging Kaori down with him. Unfortunately, Izuku wasn't spared, and not because of Kaori, since it had been already established that Kaori was more interested in Hajime than him, but it was because of the second school idol. "Good morning, Midoriya-kun. How was your day?" An exceptionally beautiful young woman greeted him as Izuku shifted his attention to look at her, quite aware that the killing intent towards him doubled even more. Curses were being whispered towards him by both men and women alike, but Izuku shrugged them off. It couldn't be really worse than dealing with his own childhood friend, or rather his former childhood friend turned bully who used him as a punching bag. "Good morning to you too, Yagashi-san. I've been fine, what about you?" Izuku politely answered to his female classmate. This was Shizuku Yagashi. She was also considered as the second school idol. She had waist-length black hair that is tied up in a ponytail with bangs hanging over her forehead and red eyes. She has a trained yet curvy body. "I've been fine. You should come by the dojo, my parents really like you," said Shizuku with a smile, clearly happy to be in Izuku's presence. Unlike Kaori, he was an airhead and densely unaware of the fact that she was the reason why the others are hostile towards Hajime. Shizuku was very much aware that her interest in Izuku was causing the other students to be hostile towards him. Shizuku was rather upset and even very annoyed by her own classmates, who are making her life unnecessarily difficult by trying to control who she makes friends with or who she is supposed to end with, since she wasn't clueless to not know about the fact that many ship her with Kauki Amanagawa. This was one of the things she hated about being popular. The reason why she still continues to talk to Izuku is because she wasn't going to bow down to the whims of others, and because Izuku didn't care about it. "Kaori. Shizuku. Why do you even bother with them?" asked Kauki with a smile, but Izuku wasn't fooled by that smile. He knew behind that face was a control freak. "You both are really so kind, Shizuku, Kaori," added Kaki, misinterpreting everything to his own convenience. Kaki assumed that Shizuku and Kaori were just pitying those two losers. Izuku looked at Kaki. He was a typical Ikeman, with good looks, athletics, smarts, and a good personality. He has silky brown hair and gentle eyes. His body is toned and slender at about 180 centimeters. Forget them. There's no use talking to some gutless pricks, said Sakagami Ryudaru, who happened to be the best friend of Kaki. Ryudaru has a physique like a bear, and he stands tall at about 190 centimeters. He has short trimmed hair and a gaze that appears both cheerful and stern. Izuku wasn't a confrontational person, which is why Ryudaru called him and Hajime gutless. Honestly, Izuku didn't expect a muscular brain idiot would ever understand his reasoning, especially as long as he was there sucking on that bastard Kaki's dick. Nagumo, Midoriya, when are you two going to stop frowning on both Kaori and Shizuku? They can't give you both attention forever, said Kaki with a stern look. Kaori, being an airhead, didn't understand anything, but Shizuku understood and leveled a glare at Kaki, obviously livid with Kaki, which was something that he noticed and made him upset. "Hey? I'm just talking to Nagumo because I want to," said Kaori, clueless at the fact that she further put a big-ass target at the back of Hajime's head. This naturally shocked Kaki and made others glare at Hajime. "I don't see what's wrong with two classmates exchanging greetings, and if anything it was both Higashi-san as well as Shirasaki-san that initiated the greeting in the first place," said Izuku with his eyes closed. "Also Sakagami-san, I don't know what me and Hajime being gutless has to do with this," said Izuku calmly as he opened his eyes to look at the shocked Kaki, as well as Ryudaru. Shizuku smiled at the fact that Izuku was standing up for himself to some degree, while Ryudaru looked at Izuku with a stern look, but inside he was embarrassed. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a magic circle appeared underneath them, covering the entire classroom floor. This naturally shocked everyone, with Izuku jumping from the chair to stand up. "The hell?" Ryudaru asked in shock as he looked at the ground to see the bright magic circle. As expected of a muscle brain, Ryudaru's brain still hasn't even processed yet what was happening. "What's going on?" Kaki shouted, being more vocal than Ryudaru as he had looked everywhere to see the magic circle expanding, with the other students clearly panicking. "It's spreading all over the classroom," shouted Kaori herself, while Shizuku on the other hand had raised her hand towards the door and decided to take the lead to ensure everyone's safety. "Hey everyone. Leave the classroom at once." Shizuku couldn't finish her sentence as instantly the bright light engulfed them completely until it died down, revealing an empty classroom. The student commotion would result in a staff member to come to check on the situation, only to find that the students along with the teacher are all gone, which would then be reported to the police. Everyone opened their eyes to find themselves in what appeared to be an interior of a castle. Izuku would have usually panicked, but having trained in the Higashi dojo made him have a good grip over his own emotions as he scanned the surroundings. "This is a magic circle that you'd see in those video games and manga. This is clearly not the work of a quirk," thought Izuku as he looked at the elderly man who stood before him. The elderly man that stood before him looked to be around the 70s with many wrinkles and long white hair. If it were not for his wrinkled face, one could say he was over 50 years old. What stood out the most was that he wore a very brilliant white religious robes and a white headdress resembling a mitre cap of about 30 centimeters tall with gold trimmings. Izuku likes to think that he was a good judge of character, having dealt with Bakugo and his goons for years back at kindergarten up to Eldera made him able to discern between someone with good intention and someone with bad intention, or someone with ulterior motives. After all, many times did people approach under the guise of being his friends, only to just reveal that they were never his friends and that they were doing it for shits and giggles. Women were particularly cruel. They would pretend to actually like him only to break his heart in the worst way possible. Izuku knew then and there that the elderly man was not a good person. It was obvious from the way he looked at them with those eyes that he hardly cared about them as people. "Eyes, calm down and make sure everyone's unharmed," Kaki spoke as he looked at his classmates who fell in disarray after being kidnapped from their class and home. Izuku had to begrudgingly admit that Kaki is very good at his thing. If only he wasn't a delusional idiot and a control freak, he might have actually seen him become a good hero. "O chosen heroes, welcome to Tortus. I have been waiting for your arrival. I am the Pope of the Church of Saints, Ishtar Lombard. The preparations are done. Please follow me." The now introduced Ishtar urged the other students to follow him. They were then led to large tables as everyone took a seat, with Izuku sitting next to Hajime, while Shizuku sat next to Izuku and Kaori sat next to Hajime, which led to a jealous Kaki to sit next to Kaori. The maids started to come to the room to deliver drinks. "Please be seated. Please, enjoy the drink we've provided. It might help ease the confusion I'm sure you are feeling. I will explain everything, so please lend me your ears until the very end," said Ishtar calmly, seeing that everyone was now paying attention to him. "This is a world parallel to yours, Tortus. It is our one and only god whom we worship, Ahad-sama, who summoned you to this world. Compared to ours, your world is far more superior," said Ishtar as he started to explain the situation. Reality shows these days are trying too hard," Ryudru said under his breath with a disdainful look while Izuku looked at him in disbelief. "He can't be that stupid, is he?" thought Izuku to himself. He doubted this was a reality show. If it is, then the company would be sued for this, since you can't just kidnap students from their classroom. You have power that far surpasses the human of this world. Well, that's according to our oracle whom Ahad-sama conveyed his message to. Ishtar continued, but Izuku noticed a slight shift in his tone and eyes. He's looking at us with contempt. Izuku thought he could already guess what was going through his head. It must be something along the lines of "How dare you not know about my lord greatness? Since long ago, we have been at war with the demons who rule the southern part of this world. But lately, strange things have started happening, and now the humans face dangers that may lead us to our ruin. To save us from such a horrible fate, Ahad-sama brought you to this world," said Ishtar, which made Kaki perk up in interest. Fuck. Izuku thought as throughout the whole conversation, Izuku had been often shooting glances at Kaki, and it seems that Shizuku was of the same mind, and now they saw Kaki eye brimming with his sense of justice. "What are you saying? That's a horrible joke. This is the worst prank I've ever seen." Inko Hadayama, who is their social studies teacher, had screamed out of nowhere. Izuku was taken aback since he didn't see her. He can't exactly be blamed as Inko-sensei was a petite woman often described as having a childlike figure by others. She has short dark brown hair and brown eyes. "Have you got permission to do this? If not, I'll sue you for kidnapping us," shouted Inko, going even more ballistic and looking like she's going to be spitting fire at any moment from her anger. "Fight on, Ai-chan," cheered Nakamura, who has short black hair that is kept in a tiny bob. She has brown eyes and is wearing glasses. Despite Inko being their social studies teacher, due to her height, she was treated as a precious child that should be protected, hence many had often given her a nickname which was Ai-chan. "Yeah. Screw this shitty prank program," Taniguchi Suzu said with a smile on her face as she also cheered for her teacher. Suzu is a teenage girl with a short stature. She has shoulder-length brown hair styled into twin tails and has light brown eyes. She was considered to be the mood maker of the class as she is usually very cheery and likes to lighten the mood. She also acts perverted at times towards her friends, making dirty jokes or grabbing one of her friends' breasts on occasion. "Return us to the school at once," roared Inko towards the Pope, who stroked his beard, masterfully masking his clear annoyance towards the young teacher who was rude. This is problematic. Then join me outside and we shall take a breather." Ishtar urged the group of students to follow him outside to prove to them that this was all real. As they were walking the hallways of the castle, Kaki decided to finally talk clearly, interested and also excited, albeit he masked it. "Ishtar-san, can I ask you something?" asked Kaki while Izuku and Shizuku looked at each other, frowning knowing where this was going. "Yes, of course," said Ishtar calmly, but he looked at Kaki assessing the boy character and looking at exploiting him to rope the others into staying. "You said the humans are at war with the demons. Are there any races besides the two of them living in this world?" asked Kaki, which made the Pope smile. "Ho-ho. Unlike the rest, do you believe my words?" asked Ishtar merely to confirm if Kaki can be exploited at this very moment and get the others to also comply. "To be honest, I don't. Mostly. Yet, after assessing the situation, I think I have no choice but to believe you," said Kaki in a serious tone while the student looked at their phones, seeing there was no signal. "Well then, let me tell you about our world while we walk to the gates," said Ishtar with a smile as he continued to stroke his long white beard. Ishtar's explanation was long, but to summarize all of this, first we need to know about the three major races that live in Tortus. There are of course other races, but they're either extinct or are not part of the war. Humans are a race that are currently occupying the north. Demons, who are the main antagonist to the human race, are occupying the south. Lastly, there were the demi-humans who inhabit the forests in the east. At the beginning the war was between humans and demons, which has been going on for 100 years, but there has not been any major clashes in recent years, so it was relatively somewhat peaceful, but apparently there is going to be a major war soon. The tide of the war originally changed when the demons decided to use the monsters to shift the war in their favor. Since the humans can't tame monsters and have them used in their wars, the next best solution was to summon a hero. This is where the self-styled god Ahad had taken to summoning them to this world in order to serve humanity's hopes and become its hero. The idea does sound appealing, but the whole situation was extremely suspicious and a lot of things didn't make sense to Izuku. Before you are the gates. If you still question which world you are in at the moment, you can confirm with your own eyes now," said Ishtar as the double doors opened, revealing the light of the outside. Everyone looked shocked at seeing that they were in the mountains. Izuku closed his eyes. Even if he had a feeling that they were isekai to another world, he still had doubts. He had read his fair share of manga, light novels and other isekai-related stories, but he didn't expect that this was real. It made him think that maybe those stories weren't fictional and were actually recited by people who had gone through said experience. "You don't tell me. This whole thing is real?" asked Inko as she fell on her knees with her eyes swirling in clear shock. "Do you believe me now?" asked Ishtar calmly as he stroked his beard, being patient for the moment as he allowed the students to process everything. I'd like to ask a question. If you could summon us to this world, surely you can return us back to our world?" asked Harem nervously as he raised his hand. Harem is asking a very good question. How will he answer? Thought Izuku as he narrowed his eyes looking at the Pope to see how he would respond. He's right. You can send us back, right? Inko asked loudly, regaining her fire once more as she wanted her student out of this mess. "I'm very sorry, but that is not something I can do. It is Ahet-sama who has transported you. I, a mere human, do not possess the power to do such a feat," said Ishtar, which resulted in Inko and other students being outraged. "Whether you are able to return to your world or not is entirely up to Ahet-sama to decide," said Ishtar, his voice laced in coldness, clearly angry that they were rejecting his lord's kindness. "That is morally questionable for your lord to reject our plight." Izuku finally decided to speak as everyone went quiet and looked at him with Ishtar narrowing his eyes at the accusation. "This is a gamble, but I will expose you," thought Izuku. He wanted the others to also question the morality of this so-called god. "What are you implying?" asked Ishtar. The hint of anger in his voice was not missed by many who had paid attention to the question, and some understood what Izuku was doing. "We're a group of 15 to 16 years old teenagers. Your lord has kidnapped us from our world to assist the humans here in this world in a war that is honestly of no concern to us," said Izuku, putting emphasis on their age. "Furthermore, we've had no prior combat training to be of help in a war that has lasted for centuries. If your lord had wanted to truly make a change, he should have instead summoned one of the pro-heroes who were trained and experienced in fighting," said Izuku with a frown which made the other also question everything. "That's right. Why my students? Why not those pro-heroes like All Might, who is the strongest hero in our world?" shouted Inko, showing her full agreement as well. "Most of us don't want to fight in this war. Any of us here could end up losing our life or get maimed with the possibility of mental trauma. Assuming we do agree to fight, can you guarantee all of us could return to our home safely?" asked Izuku seriously, looking in his eyes. This made many of the students nervous as they were reminded that they were going to war. Ishtar noticed that his anger was seeping and realized that Izuku was baiting him and decided to do something to salvage the situation. "Of course. Ahet-sama's kindness knows no bounds and will surely bestow on all of you his blessings so that you can safely return to your homes," Ishtar said, which made a few excited, but others like Shizuku had already seen his mask slip and realized the severity of the situation they were in. "I see. I will take your word as the truth," said Izuku with a sigh. He wasn't going to pursue this any further. He had to remind himself that this was an important figure in this world, assuming from the way he dresses is anything to go by. Antagonizing him would put him and the others who are close to him in an unnecessary danger. He decided to back away, which Ishtar let out a small huff, clearly satisfied that the boy didn't decide to make an issue out of this. "No. You can't send these kids to war. I, Hadeyama Inko, won't let you, even if it's the will of God. It's your world. It's your war. You take care of it yourself," shouted Inko, not willing to give up even if Izuku decided to let the issue go. Inko comically stood in front of the kids with both her hands raised as if she was protecting them, which made the students look at her weirdly at seeing their midget teacher do something like that. "Why are you so against it? Being chosen by Ahet-sama himself is a very great honor," said Ishtar, who at this point was exasperated by the women. "We don't need any of those honors. Just return us to our world," shouted Inko, getting even angrier until Katsuki placed his hand on Inko's shoulder. "Inko-sensei. We are thinking of fighting for this world. We want to save it from destruction. After all, there must be a meaning for why we are summoned to this world," said Katsuki. His naivety and sense of justice had finally come out. "We? What the hell is that bastard talking about? I don't remember ever voting for him to speak on my behalf. This must be some kind of a hero syndrome, because no way is he this suicidal and stupid," thought Izuku, wishing that Katsuki would just drop dead at this point. "So that's how you feel? Well, I guess I can let loose that way," said Ryutaru while cracking his knuckles, which is expected from a brute. "We can't go back. I don't like this, but whatever," Shizuku commented as she looked at Izuku apologetically, knowing what was going through his head at the moment. "If Shizuku-chan will, then I will too," said Kaori, quite determined to follow her friend in all of this since she trusted her to know the best. One by one the other students were motivated by Kaki's words as they forgot what he said earlier and started to show their support while Aiko's words went on deaf ears. Izuku was getting angry by the second Kaki was undoing everything he had done. He knows that they're stuck in this world, but why were people treating this as another school field trip? Why am I surrounded by a bunch of idiots? Are they mentally retarded that they can't realize how suspicious all of this is? Even when I just baited that bastard Pope, they seem to forget everything. Screw them then. Thought Izuku as he glared at Kaki and the other idiotic students. Thank you, everyone. Let's join our strength and help the men of this world. And then we'll return to our own world, together. Said Kaki with a charming smile. More like most of you people will be returning in a body bag. I pity you people for being this retarded, must be hereditary, hopefully their stupidity isn't also contagious, I'd hate to be infected by it as well. Thought Izuku, insulting the other students in his head. He glanced at Hajime who also looked at the rest of the class, aside from a few as a bunch of morons. They called Hajime a loser more like they're the losers here. This is stupidity at the highest order. He pitied the parents who will have to bury their own children because of an idiot wannabe hero who only thinks about himself. Chapter 2. Destiny. Mighty heroes, I thank you for your cooperation. I'm the commander of King Elahid Knights, Meld Loggins. The now introduced Meld Loggins spoke with his arm crossed and a fearless smile. He is a well-built middle-aged man with short spiky brown hair and a short beard. He also had a small scar on the left side of his chin. Meld's combat attire consisted of a suit of armor with a red cape and a large sword mounted on his back. It was the next day since they were summoned, and right now everyone was standing in front of the Knight Commander, wearing an athletic white shirt and shorts with 2 wrist armbands. Izuku looked with a raised eyebrow at the small plate that was given to him and the others. He could already guess what it was but decided to see what Meld would say. Let's cut to the chase. We have given each of you a status plate. Said Meld, not beating around the bush, something which Izuku liked about the guy. What is this? As the name implies, it will record your status in numeric form. It's also used as an identification card, so don't you ever lose it. Said Meld in a serious tone to show how important those are. I see. Thought Izuku, but he found the idea to be brilliant but stupid at the same time. Having an identification to go around is not a surprise since they have their IDs in Japan, but including as well their stats is a bad idea. The most important thing about a battle is information gathering or intelligence, so the status plate as they put it is a clear weakness, because if an enemy is to get a hold of it, they can make a plan based on what is your weakest point and exploit it. Spill a drop of blood in it with the needle we gave you. Then it will register you as its owner. Don't ask how it works, okay? Because we really don't have any idea. Said Meld as Izuku looked at the needle in his hand. He would be lying if he said that he didn't feel excitement. When he heard that all of them will receive power, he was rather happy. Izuku couldn't really help it because it was only a day ago that he was quirkless. He is still quirkless, but he will gain power which would solve his dilemma. Although, Izuku was quite afraid to get his hopes up. What if he didn't get a good job or worse didn't get one at all? He'd probably be miserable if that were to happen. Taking a deep breath, Izuku poked his own finger with a needle in his other hand before letting a drop of blood on the status plate. A complicated magic circle appeared on the status plate before it showed his stats. Wow. Dark Slayer. Said Izuku breathlessly as he looked at his own stats. This was totally unexpected, but yet it was a welcome surprise. He apparently had a job called Dark Slayer and had numerous skills including high numeric stats. This is an artifact from ancient times. The only artifact from the time when the gods still walked the earth that the Church of Saints could recreate. Explained Meld how the status plate came to be and its importance. On the plates are written your stats in numbers, class name, and a list of skills. Your class is similar to your talent. Skills are abilities that you have learned. Your understanding of our language despite coming from a different world is thanks to the language comprehension skill. Meld explained how the status plate works. Izuku looked at Hajime to see the look of confusion and worry, and he had a bad feeling about this. He hopes that Hajime has a good job, but even if he gets a bad one, he will support him. And for your information, the people of Tortus usually start with 10 points on average. Said Meld, which made Hajime feel even more downcasted as he realized that he was average as all his stats are at 10. Although you come from a better world and have 0 combat experience, I'm sure your stats are several times higher than that. How enviable. Meld said with a fearless smile, masking the fact that he was envious of the students who didn't train, yet definitely have good stats. Izuku didn't blame him. He assumes that summoned heroes tend to gain the benefit of having special and unique jobs, along with the higher stats, than the average Tortus citizen. Report to us the contents of your plates, understand? Meld instructed once more as the students lined up with Kaki being the first. Sir. Amanagawa Kaki, class. Hero. My stats are all 100. My skills. Are many. Said Kaki confidently, but with a hint of confusion due to the many skills. Meld was definitely surprised that a hero was among the group of students, as he had walked to check the status plate of Kaki, seeing the stats which were impressive. 100 in all stats. As expected of a hero. How enviable. Said Meld as he patted Kaki's shoulder, which made Kaki laugh awkwardly. Hey Nagumo, I wanna see yours. A familiar voice was heard by Nagumo as his status plate was snatched from his hand by the leader of the group of his bullies, Daisukiyama. Daisukiyama happened to be a young man with short brown hair that fell flat on his head. Honestly, Izuku disliked Yama the most. Not only is he an uncivilized animal who has the brain of an ape, but he is a bully, he is a total scum. What the fuck, this is shitty. What are you, an average creep? Shouted Hiyama with a mocking laugh as he saw Hajim's job, and he didn't waste any time to mock him and humiliate him. The only one who is a creep here is you with a look fitting for a sex offender. Thought Izuku as he glared at Hiyama heatedly. Meld-san. What is a synergist? Hiyama turned his question to Meld while waving Hajim's status plate, which made Hajim sweat a little knowing where this is going and not liking it. Synergist. It's a crafting class. It's a good crafting class, but not really useful in battle. Said Meld, confused a little not knowing that Hiyama was using this to bully Hajim. Good luck with that. Make our weapons, okay? Ordered Hiyama mockingly as he tossed the status plate onto Hajim. His two goons and Hajim's bully also laughed, deciding to add salt to the wound. Wahaha. I don't need weapons made by Nagumo. I'm gonna die if I use them. Raichi commented while Shinji just laughed loudly. Aiko came running towards Hajim with an angry look, not at Hajim, but rather at the bullies who belittled Hajim, as she decided to try and comfort Hajim in her own way. Nagumo-kun, you don't have to worry. I also have average stats in the non-combat class, too. Said Aiko with a smile, not aware how important her job is, as she showed her status plate to Hajim. So Nagumo-kun, let's just do what we can. Right. Said Aiko excitedly, trying to cheer up her student, but Meld saw her job and became shocked. The farmer, I've never seen one before. Hurry. Contact the church. This person could very well be the harbinger of the era of better food quality, Meld shouted to one of the knights around, who proceeded to run inside the castle to inform the church. Aiko looked shocked as she looked between the knight commander and her own student Hajim, who looked even more downcasted, since even their own midget social studies teacher had a good job, even if it's a non-combat job. Izuku sent a pitying look towards Hajim, as he also went there to encourage his friend who must be feeling down, but suddenly his own status plate was snatched by Hiyama, who sneaked behind him. Now let's see what the other quirkless loser has for a job. Bet it's just another lame. Hiyama's loud voice stopped as his eyes bugged out as he saw the status plate of Izuku. The rest of the students turned to look at Hiyama in confusion, wondering why Hiyama was shocked along with the rest of the other two bullies, as that made them wonder what is Izuku's job. What the hell? Shouted Hiyama in shock while Raichi snatched the status plate to look at it closely and was also shocked and humiliated. He has 100 in all categories, it must be broken. Raichi shouted, which shocked the rest of the students as they looked at Izuku. Shinji then took the status plate from Raichi to confirm everything. Not only that, he has so many skills. Teleportation, telekinesis, accelerated healing, sword proficiency, all elemental aptitude. Just what the hell, man? Shouted Shinji in shock and humiliation. Izuku snatched the status plate from his hand and glared at them. He felt good seeing the look of humiliation on their faces as they realized that they failed at humiliating him as well. You don't think because you have a good job that you're the shit. You're still a quirkless loser, don't forget that. Shouted Hiyama in anger and humiliation. I didn't say anything, you're the one who took my status plate and shouted my stats for everyone to hear. Besides, what does being quirkless have to do with anything? Izuku asked, challenging Hiyama, who backed away. Also one more thing. Said Izuku before he suddenly uppercutted Hiyama, sending him flying towards a wall where he crashed into and was knocked out cold in an instant. This is for harassing Hajim, let's make it clear, if I see you harassing him again, you'll have to answer to me. Said Izuku with a serious look, deciding to set a line that should not be crossed. He then slammed his foot onto Shinji's stomach, and given how much of an overweight he is, he was also sent flying next to Hiyama, where he started to vomit on the ground while screaming in pain. Hey man, we were just joking. Please let me go. Raichi said, clearly begging while trying to back away, but Izuku wasn't going to let him go easily, as he raised his foot and slammed it on the side of his head, which resulted in Raichi's head to hit the ground, causing a small crater which knocked him out. Everyone was shocked as Izuku looked at them, which resulted in some of them who harassed Izuku in the past to back away in fear that Izuku will do the same to them, but Izuku wasn't that type of person. Hajim watched this and felt his lips stretch into a smile. Hajim was clearly satisfied in seeing Izuku beat those three up with ease and humiliate them just like they did with him. He was also happy to see Izuku defending him. "There's no need for violence, young man. I don't know what they did to you, but if they did something, please report to me and I will discipline them," Meld said, trying to mediate the situation. "Those three are bullies. If I didn't put them in their places they would have gotten a big head and would have harassed me and Hajime. But don't worry, I will not make this a habit," said Izuku, but he wouldn't promise him. "Thank you, young man," said Meld, grateful that at least Izuku is complying and is not being stubborn. He also looked at Izuku's stats and was impressed. "I must say, you have very good stats. I'm ashamed to have to say this to kids who shouldn't be involved in this war, but we will need all of your strengths if we want to win," said Meld somberly and clearly ashamed as he lowered his head to the other students. Izuku's opinion on Meld increased. He could see that the Knight Commander hated how a couple of teenagers were drafted to fight in a war that isn't their own problem. This is someone he could respect, unlike the Pope who was scheming around and manipulating them, but then again he only blamed cocky ignorance as well as his hero syndrome. If only that guy had some form of intelligence in that pea-sized brain, then maybe they could have found a solution or made a plan to ensure that they return back home safely. The other student smiled and Kaki, who was planning on reprimanding Izuku for hitting the other three students, had stopped to look at the Knight Commander and smiled. "Don't worry, Meld-san, we promised to bring victory to the people of this world," said Kaki with determination, eye brimming with blind justice. Meld was happy to hear that, but it also served to make him feel even more guilty that those kids were so ready to shoulder such a burden. If only they knew the kind of horror that comes with this war, but he will do his best to prepare them all. Shizuku looked at Izuku and smiled. She was happy to know that Izuku had a job similar to her own. She decided to train with him by sparring. This might get her away from Kaki, who is already stressing her out. "Now then, during the next 2 weeks we will be training you all just merely to get you all used to your own abilities. I, Meld Loggins, will train you to the best of my abilities," said Meld with a smile. The other student quickly broke out into a chatter, clearly excited to test their newfound ability. Due to their world's strict quirk policy, they weren't allowed to really use their quirks. It's been 2 weeks since then, everything had been going smoothly for the most part, but for Hajime, he hadn't made much progress. Still, Hajime was glad that Hayama and his gang kept their distance from him, probably due to Izuku threats still lingering in the air. His other classmates also didn't bother him, so he considered that as a bonus. The last thing he wants is people hating him just because Kaori happens to be interested in him for some odd reason. Currently, we could see Izuku and Hajime sitting together in the latter's room with books opened and spread all over the table. They were trying to learn anything they could while at the same time finding a solution for Hajime. "We really should gather more information soon," said Hajime with a sigh, while Izuku found himself wholeheartedly agreeing with him. "I've already figured out that they would have censored the books or restricted us from having certain books by now. It's like they want us to depend on them. I really don't like those people," said Izuku while Hajime had to agree. The only books they were allowed to have were pretty basic ones containing general information that any person could tell you about. Magic books that they had given to them contained very basic spells that are taught anywhere, with many being censored. "I really hate my synergist class. My stats only went up a little if we were to compare it with you and the others. I can't even make a good weapon. How can I even make things like firearms and other weapons from our world?" said Hajime, obviously complaining. Hajime was dejected at first when he learned that he had a synergist class. Izuku, in an attempt to cheer him up, told him about the possibility that he could make modern weapons, which seemed to excite him once more, but so far, the only skill he had was transmute. "I can't exactly tell you that it will get easier, but we will figure something out. Maybe we should first take you to well-known synergists around the Highlight Kingdom who could help you comprehend how the skill operates before we aim for something big like creating firearms," said Izuku while Hajime took his words into consideration. "I feel like the whole idea of bringing modern weapons into a world of magic and sword is cheating," said Hajime as he scratched his cheek. "We barely know the capability of our enemies. For all we know, the people of this world might be stronger than the likes of All Might. I think it's not unfair if we were to even the fields, but we will have to make this a secret," said Izuku while Hajime shuddered. "If the enemy is stronger than All Might, then we're screwed. I really don't think anyone can be on his level. He isn't the symbol of peace just for show," said Hajime while Izuku let out a sigh. "All Might is the strongest hero in Japan and maybe in our world, but we don't know how this world operates. Assuming that I was wrong and that the people here are not that strong, then all the more reason to create modern weapons and quickly end this stupid war," said Izuku while Hajime went quiet. "I honestly want to go back home since I'm worried about my mom. She is a very emotional person, and I don't know what she will do. I just hope Auntie Mitsuki or your parents will keep her company," said Izuku with a sigh, while Hajime understood how he felt. Hajime had met Izuku's mother just as Izuku had met his parents. He had obviously gotten to know that Inko was a very emotionally sensitive person who tends to cry a literal fountain of tears that he at first believed her quirk to be some water-based quirk. Nonetheless, he knew that Inko being alone and with her husband who is Izuku's father, was abroad working to support his family made Inko unable to rely on anyone. That made his thoughts process shift to his parents. He wondered how worried they are at the moment once they hear that he disappeared. He doubted they would ever give up on him and would search for him until their very last breath, which made him smile. The moment we get thrown into this world, the word fair is no longer applied here, so we will have to respond back to them with even more unfairness so that we can return back home to our parents, said Izuku with a grin while Hajime felt better. You're right. I really sounded stupid talking about fairness, given that they were the ones who put us in this situation, said Hajime with a grin, feeling better with Izuku around. Also, if we ever do return back home, you might finally be able to become a hero like you always wanted, said Hajime with a smile, since Izuku had a very good job that could make him a hero. You're right. I never really thought about it that much since I'm focused on surviving, but maybe this will make being a hero easier, said Izuku while Hajime chuckled, understanding where he was coming from. Knock. Knock. The knock had interrupted the two friends as Hajime stood up, confused as to who could be willing to stay up late, but that was soon answered. Nagumo-kun, are you awake? Asked Kaori, making sure her voice wasn't loud so as to wake up the other students who were currently sleeping. Seems to me that your girlfriend is here, Izuku teased, which made Hajime's face turn bright red as he was ready to protest, but Izuku was already at the door opening it. Midoriya-kun, what are you doing in Nagumo-kun's room? Asked Kaori in confusion as Izuku opened the door while Kaori peeked to see Hajime on the desk looking somewhat nervous. You know Hajime, he likes to stay up late and I'm just keeping him company while helping him with his synergist class. Either way, I'm going to sleep, so I will leave you two to your own devices, said Izuku with a smirk as he left. Izuku, having left Hajime behind, he didn't doubt that his friend was cursing him under his breath for leaving him in the same room as his crush, but he knew that if he stayed, he would be just getting in the way and making things awkward. Izuku walked in the hallway of the inn, but stopped and raised an eyebrow at seeing Shizuku standing before his door, probably ready to give up before he gained a mischievous idea and sneaked behind her. I never took you for a person who'd stay up late, Yugashi-san, Izuku whispered in her ears, making her let out a squeak in surprise as she jumped back before seeing it was Izuku. Midoriya-kun, so you were outside? Shizuku asked, trying to regain her composure. Only Izuku was able to make her vulnerable with his antics, and it's not really a bad thing. I was at Hajime's room, he was still sulking a little bit because of his synergist class, and I was trying to help him, said Izuku calmly as he walked towards his room, opening it before he made a gesture with his hand, clearly inviting her to enter. Shizuku blushed as she walked inside the room and found Izuku's room as expected to be clean and tidy. Izuku has always been the type who likes to organize his things and dislike messy things. Make yourself comfortable, would you like any drink, maybe a coffee or just water? Asked Izuku while Shizuku contemplated what she wanted. Water. Tomorrow we will be going to the Orcus Labyrinth for our training, I'd rather not stay up too late, said Shizuku as drinking coffee or tea would make it hard for her to go back to sleep. Izuku calmly nodded as he brought her a glass cup and poured her water, which she took and started to sip a little bit just to hydrate herself. Izuku took the opposite seat from her. You know, you and Shirasaki-san are quite alike. She just came knocking on Hajime's room a few minutes ago, that's why I left and came back here, said Izuku with a chuckle while Shizuku was half surprised. Why am I not surprised? I know that she likes him, but never thought she'd be visiting his room at night like this, said Shizuku while Izuku gave a wry smile given how hypocritical that sounded off her. You do know that you're in no position to say this, given that you're sitting before me late at night, said Izuku while Shizuku blinked before she let out a giggle. You're certainly right about that, said Shizuku as the room went quiet as the two enjoyed the quiet atmosphere before Izuku decided to break the silence. So what brings you here? Not that I mind your company, but I doubt this is just a social visit where we talk about the weather and recount memories of the past, said Izuku while Shizuku let out a sigh. I'm worried about you. You're certainly strong, but that abnormal change in appearance concerns me, said Shizuku, conveying her worry. Izuku let out a sigh as he looked at the reflection of the window. His own appearance remained somewhat relatively unchanged, but his hair started to turn white at the front. One of his eyes also started to turn blue. It was quite the mystery that everybody had noticed and had no explanation about. The only conclusion he came to was that it has something to do with his job. It's kind of like the mutation type quirk back in their own world which changes a person's appearance. Still, he could understand her concern, since Tortus' magic system is different than their own system of power which has quirks. Magic follows the system of jobs, which is the natural aptitude of a person, although Izuku doesn't know if this information is accurate or not. This so-called god of Tortus is obviously a mystery to him and the other students, and from everything he had seen far, he didn't much trust him. This had led him to just assume that Ehit can give other people jobs. He wouldn't really be surprised if Kauki was given hero job because of how easy it is to manipulate. Back on the topic, even if you don't end up getting a job, you can still get skills, but they are typically not as abundant, and a normal person with a job in Tortus can learn around 2 to 3 skills at maximum in their lifetime. Jobs are divided into 2 categories, which are non-combat jobs, which are quite common in Tortus, while there is combat job, which are quite rare in Tortus. Quirks on the other hand are divided into 3 different categories, which are emitter type quirk, mutation type quirk and transformation type quirk. Not only that, quirks just appear randomly at the age of 4, and to this day, scientists can't figure out how it came to be. Some just hypothesize that quirks were the result of mice carrying a virus, which is one of the reasons why quirked users back then were discriminated against, but some others hypothesized that it was the result of humans just evolving. Either way, it was obvious that quirk and jobs are 2 fundamentally different power systems, which is why his own current situation didn't make sense to the others, because there was no job known to be capable of changing one's appearance. Either way, Izuku felt at ease and wasn't that concerned about such changes. Instead he felt normal, or rather he had started to feel normal, as if he was just wearing a mask and was starting to remove it from his face, letting the fresh air welcome him. This may seem concerning to you, but I honestly feel normal, said Izuku while Shizuku raised an eyebrow in confusion. What do you mean? Asked Shizuku, quite curious. She noticed that nothing about his personality had changed much aside from the fact that he became somewhat vocal. Shizuku knew Izuku long enough to know that he likes to avoid socializing, not because he was shy or anything, but because Izuku likes to just avoid trouble. Apparently, it was something quirkless people tend to do, in which they attempt to fade in the background. When she asked Izuku why, the answer left her heartbroken. When you're a quirkless person in a world with 80% of the population already possessing a quirk, you can't afford to stand out or say anything. The worst thing you can do as a quirkless person is to voice out your opinion or argue with someone. It makes some people, the quirkiest ones, very angry, because many believe that the quirkless have no rights to voice their opinion, nor should they argue against their betters. So if a quirkless person were to be hit, he had to just bite his lip and accept his punishment, even if he didn't do anything. But being a smartass is a one-way ticket to a beating of your lifetime, and resisting will give them even more reason to try and put you in your place with harsher methods. The same thing applies to being smart. Many people with pride and ego will take this as a personal attack. After all, quirkless people shouldn't be smarter than a person with a quirk. Hence, Izuku avoided socializing and standing out, which is something that Shizuku found to be very unfair. Shizuku had heard the horrors that he had gone through at Aldera before he moved to their own middle school. It was why she invited him to join her family dojo in hopes that he'd have more confidence in himself. This is why Shizuku often got angry at Kauki, because none of those people bothered to know Izuku or Hajime in the matter, they just made assumptions based on outward appearance. I don't know how to really put it into words, but I feel like I'm in the process of removing a mask that was covering my face my entire life, said Izuku while Shizuku frowned confused. I'm sure by the end of all of this, my hair is going to turn completely white and my other eye will turn completely blue as well. I will be a completely different person in appearance, said Izuku, quite relaxed and unbothered. I guess worrying is useless at this point since this can't be stopped. I just hope you don't change too much, said Shizuku sincerely while Izuku nodded his head. Even if I change, I know you and Hajime are going to stick by my side in all of this, said Izuku, having complete faith in Hajime and Shizuku to have his own back. I guess you're right, said Shizuku with a smile before she decided to finally return to her room, as she excused herself and left Izuku on his own to lay on the bed. Sparda. What an odd name, muttered Izuku to himself. What he hadn't told anyone was that he had been having dreams of 2 white-haired males with blue eyes. Izuku didn't know what those 2 individuals in his dream were and what their relation to him was. With his hair turning white and eyes turning blue, he had speculated that there is a deep connection between him and those 2 people in his dreams. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.